Merhaba değerli izleyiciler. Anadolu'da sosyal girişimcilik kapsamında bugünkü konuğumuz Profesör Frank Martin Belz. Münih Teknik Üniversitesi İşletme Bölümünde Kurumsal Sürdürülebilirlik Bölüm Başkanlığı'nı yürüten Profesör Belz'in inovasyon, girişimcilik, sürdürülebilirlik ve pazarlama üzerine çok sayıda akademik yayını bulunmakta. Bugün de kendisiyle sürdürülebilirlik, girişimcilik ve inovasyon üzerine konuşacağız. So, Professor Belz, welcome to Anadolu University.
Thank you.
So let's start with sustainable development. What do you mean by sustainable development?
Well, it's a definition going back to the World Commission on Environment and Development, or the so-called Brundtland Commission. And they define sustainable development as a kind of development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So this definition comprises three key elements. First one, it is all about human needs, to satisfy human needs. The second one is about intra-generational equity, which means to satisfy the human needs of present generations, of the North, the South, the West, and the East. And then finally, the third key element is intergenerational equity, which is to also meet the needs of future generations, the generations of our children and children's, so that we leave a planet Earth so they can also satisfy their needs in the future.
Thank you. We also see some concepts like sustainable innovation in your studies. What do you mean by sustainable innovation then?
Well, innovation is always about some kind of novelty. In our case, novel, sustainable products and services. And they have to match the criteria we just defined. You know, do they satisfy human needs, and do they also fulfill the criteria of intra and intergenerational equity? Let me give you a few examples.
Please.
Let's take, for example, automotives. When we think about gasoline-powered automotives from the last century, which are common nowadays, we have incremental innovations, that is to say, more eco-efficient gasoline-powered cars. That would be an incremental innovation. It's a bit better than before. And then we also see radical new sustainability innovations, including hybrid cars or including electric cars, which have a totally new kind of engine based on batteries and electric energy, which have less emissions and less noise, which is a big issue in urban areas.
Thank you. Well, how do you define the characteristics of sustainable innovation then?
One is certainly the novelty, whether it's, you know, just incremental, a little bit better than the past, or whether it's radically new. So that's one criteria. Another one is whether the sustainability innovations really meet customer needs, because if they don't, they cannot survive and thrive on the market. Another one is, when it comes to sustainability innovations, whether they consider ecological and social issues. So electric cars are supposed to have less environmental impact than gasoline-powered cars. Fair trade products, like food products, fair trade coffee, they have less social impact on the small farmers in the third world countries. So they take social and ecological issues into account. And another one is that they consider sustainability innovations consider the main social ecological problems along the entire life cycle, from cradle to grave of a product, from the raw extraction to the consumption and the disposal of the product. And finally, these kind of sustainability innovations, they have to compete with conventional offerings. So An electric car has to compete with a conventional gasoline-powered car. So these are 6 important characteristics of sustainability innovations.
Thank you. Well, there's another concept like sustainability entrepreneurship. What is it then? How do you define it?
Well, interesting question. When we talk about conventional entrepreneurship, it's about recognizing, discovering, and also exploiting an entrepreneurial opportunity. In the context of sustainability, the triple bottom line comes into play. So we would define sustainability entrepreneurship as recognizing, discovering or developing, and finally exploiting entrepreneurial opportunities which meet the triple bottom line of economic goals, ecological goals, and social goals. So basically it's about entrepreneurs which seeks or which look into some kind of sustainability issues or a social and ecological problem. They try to find a solution to that, and at the same time they see it as a market opportunity to make some business out of it. Let me give you 2 or 3 different examples. One would be from Germany. There's a company called Coffee Circle, and it was set up 2 or 3 years ago by 3 guys in Berlin, the main capital of Germany. And they want to reconnect coffee producers, the coffee farmers on the one hand, and the coffee consumers on the other. Usually the coffee chain is quite intertwined and quite complex, quite long. And they want to reconnect the two and create an additional social and ecological value. So in this case of Coffee Circle, the founders got into connection with Ethiopian coffee farmers. They talked to them about their social and ecological problems, and they import high-quality beans from the Ethiopian coffee farmers, which are fair-traded and also organic. And then they directly sell it to the consumers, to the end users. And they show videos of the farmers, they show the everyday life and also the problems they try to solve. And every time you buy as an end user, as you buy the Coffee Circle coffee, every time you can select a certain kind of project. It might be a social or an ecological project, and every time you buy something, you automatically donate €1 for this typical project. Like, for example, building a school for the community, or building renewable energies like solar power for this type of community. So this would be one example, which is quite popular, or becoming quite popular in Germany. Another example would be from Finland. It's a company called Globe Hope, set up by a woman about 10 years ago, and her name is Seija Lukkula, and she was in the fashion business. She was by education a fashion and textile designer, and actually she was quite successful as an entrepreneur. But then around 2000 she got fed up with the fast fashion. You know, every time you buy something, you wear it for a couple of weeks or months, and after one season you get rid of it. And that's why she wanted to do something about, you know, the fast consumption, fast fashion, and all the waste it produces. So then she thought about a solution. And her idea was to make new stuff out of old stuff. So to take the waste, so to say, and produce new clothes out of it. And it took her a long time to align the two, the social ecological solution to the problem and the entrepreneurial opportunity. But after some thinking, setting up a business plan, she managed to really intertwine the two. She came up with fashionable design. She came up with a brand called Globe Hope, and also customers which would support that, and durable products like, for example, she has a lot of army clothes she uses in her new clothes for men and women, or she also has corporate companies like aviation companies, like let's say British Airways, and sometimes they change their clothes, their design. So they have a lot of old design and suits from the stewardess and so on. So what they did, they made new bags out of the old clothes for this kind of company. And she is quite successful, and nowadays she even goes Europe. That is to say, she starts importing her products to different European countries, including UK, including Germany and others. So again, we have an entrepreneur thinking about a problem, in this case an ecological problem. In the coffee circle it was more a social problem. And then align it with an entrepreneurial opportunity to make a viable business model. And that's the main reason, I guess, these new startups are also successful in the market.
Such nice examples, thank you. Then can we identify the difference of process from sustainability entrepreneurship process and typical entrepreneurship process? How does sustainability entrepreneurship process look like then?
As I said, conventional entrepreneurship is mainly about recognizing, discovering, and exploiting an entrepreneurial opportunity, and it focuses on profits, on economic value only. And whereas sustainability entrepreneurship is about recognizing, discovering, developing, and exploiting entrepreneurial opportunities, meeting the triple bottom line. And I would say there are three main differences. The first one is the triple bottom line. It's not only about profits, the economic dimension, it also involves the ecological and social dimension. So this is the first one. And of course, when we measure it later on, the performance, it is important not just to measure the economic performance, the profits of the company, like Globe Hope or Coffee Circle, but also measure the social and ecological value. So in the end of the day, we also want to see, in the case of Globe Hope, how much waste she actually reduced. Or in the case of Coffee Circle, what the social impact actually is, besides the profit of the company. So that would be number one. It's not only about economic, but the triple bottom line. The second one, I think, is the alignment of the social ecological problems and the entrepreneurial opportunities. That is something specific to this process. And a third one we see, and we just have a hunch, we don't have any research yet, but we intend to conduct research in this area, is the forming and the funding of the company. So there's a new form of funding for companies in general, which is called crowdfunding. And it's a kind of internet platform where you present your project or your company and you ask funders, you ask people to give you, either to lend you money or to give you money to set up your business. And we have the feeling that sustainability projects and sustainability enterprises are well suited for this kind of crowdfunding because it's not just about economic profits and financial returns, but also about emotional commitments, about social and ecological value. So these are the three criteria, I think.
Thank you for this clear comparison, Prof. Then how do you define the influencing variables of the sustainability and entrepreneurship process then?
Interesting question. Well, the process is all about, or it starts with the problems and the entrepreneurial opportunities, the alignment, and then forming and funding the company and finally entering the market. So this would be the process. And now you're asking for the influencing variables. So one influencing variable is certainly the persons or the personalities setting up the company, their values, their motivations to do so. So that is one variable. Another one is also the environment. That might be the market environment. I gave you two examples of consumer goods companies or enterprises. So this might be one influencing variables which enhance this kind of business. But it could also be the cultural environment. It might be a different story to set up a business, such a business in Finland, Germany, and Turkey, but this is something to be investigated. So these are definitely two influencing variables. And in addition, the broader political and public environment matters as well. But that is something we still have to look into.
Thank you, Prof, so much. Thanks for your kind attendance and such great sharings on sustainability and entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
Değerli izleyiciler, Anadolu'da sosyal işletmecilik kapsamında bugün Profesör Frank Martin Belz ile sürdürülebilirlik, girişimcilik ve inovasyon üzerine konuştuk. Sürdürülebilir gelişim, sürdürülebilir inovasyon ve sürdürülebilir girişimcilik nedir ve bunlar arasındaki ayrım nelerdir? Bunlara dikkat çektik. Teşekkür ederiz.